welcome to Layback with Betfair. Joined by the A-team, we're back.
Hello everyone and welcome to a very special edition of Layback with Betfair ahead of what's an enormous week of racing in Sydney, day one of the championships. My name's Nick Foot and I'm joined by a couple of very special form students today, the Cronulla King himself, Dean Watling, and the pride of South Australia, Mitch Lewis. Dino, good day to you, mate.
Yes, hello fellas. A pleasure to be here, and it's a good week to be here. One of the best meetings you'll find in Sydney. Caulfield compliments well, and probably isn't going to be underwater, so we might be betting down there. But pleasure to be here, footy.
Yeah, hopefully you've rolled the covers out there up at Royal Randwick, mate. The forecast looks pretty horrific, but we'll be able to go in that and find hopefully a few winners still on what's one of the biggest days of racing at Randwick for the year. And Mitch, welcome to Layback as well, mate. The pride of SA. We're just throwing in a little bit of a different flavour this week with the usual crew indisposed.
Yeah, footy, thanks for having me. Looking forward to it, and especially hopping on with my old mate Dino down the line there. Looking forward to it. We've got plenty to rip apart, particularly in we'll need the snorkel out there in New South Wales, that's for sure.
No doubt. Well, before we get the snorkels out, boys, we've got to get to the feature segment of the show, which is, of course, the lay bin. And it's where just anything that grinds our gears or we just feel unsettled about anything at the moment. I mean, the Randwick track is no doubt going to get into a few lay bins next week, and I can already see it. Hopefully we just go ahead. But let's stick away from racing to start with. And I might throw to you, Dino. Have you got something for us for the lay bin?
I've got two this week. I love these. I love this segment. The first one, and it's a great mate of yours and the team at Betfair, is Tommy Haylock last week on the show. Laid-in his short sleeve shirt, with vests on. I love a vest. I think racing vests are big. The embroidery on there is terrific, but I think it's absolutely cast when people rock the vest with a short sleeve shirt. So Tommy Haylock in the Laid-in. And the second one, newly back to the dating market, boys. And ghosting is a massive thing and a massive issue. So it's straight in the Laid-in this week. You don't know what ghosting is, footy or Mitchy. It's when you sort of chat to a person for a little bit. Things are going great. And then all of a sudden, bang, they're off the face of the earth. There's nothing to be seen. They don't message you back, nothing. It's like going to place a bet. They think the bet's on and then the horse wins. And then you get there and you go and check your bet slip and you haven't placed it. So they're my two Laid-ins this week, boys.
Analogies, Watling there with I like that. You've been able to explain to me what a dating app is for a man that's been married for some time like myself. We used to actually had to go and talk to people. Dean. I'm actually trying to. I'm not that old. I'm sounding old, but I'm really not that old. Yeah. But some crackers as well. And I don't know what Tommy Haylock was doing with that vest. I think he was just trying to keep his chest warm because they're an absolute defeating the purpose there, aren't they?
Mitch, it's like a beanie in summer.
I was going to say, I might have to defend Tommy here because it's one of my go-to looks. It's if you got a bit of hair on your arms, you don't need the sleeves. No. You just want to keep the little midriff area. So I've got to stand up for my man there. It's a nice looking look, and I don't know, Dino, maybe up there where the sun hits you back a bit more often, you just don't quite understand the old vest yet.
Yeah, I wouldn't be wearing it on the Bondi to Bronte walk at all.
Mitchy, what do you got for the lay-in, mate?
Yeah, so I've got one here, and I know it's one that's probably for everybody. We all get, well, I'm assuming we all get these text messages from scammers in the middle of the night. You know, you get you've got to post up something, you've got to pick up from the post, or you've got a toll that you've got to go and pay, and they all come through at the middle of the night. Now, I just want to say to these scammers out there, you got to be smarter if you want to get some money, boys, because I don't know. Look, I'm South Australian based, so when I'm getting 3 toll text messages at 3 a.m. some nights, brother, I'm nowhere near any tolls. So you know, bam, turn it straight off. Like, you got to be smarter. You got to think of another edge here because you're all over the place there.
No, that is a terrific lay-in. I'm certainly getting a lot of those. And I actually keep thinking, geez, have I linked my toll to the correct account? And they haven't quite got me yet. They haven't Nigerian princed me just yet, but they might at some stage.
At least you're getting messages back, boys. That's a big thing.
I wouldn't mind getting ghosted by scammers. To be
See, after this, they'll pick up on Dino now and be like, oh, right, we'll just throw the old Nigerian princess for Dino.
It's vulnerable.
Hey, I'm going to address the elephant in the Zoom call here, and that is Reece Goodwin, who was a laid out for layback today, which is a blessing because we get to chat all things racing with you two extremely knowledgeable gentlemen. But this is the first back-related podcast out that I've ever seen in my short broadcasting history. This seriously lacks some intestinal fortitude to pull out of a show because you've got a sore back and it's online. It has to be questioned by the stewards. And look, I know he dabbles a lot in English digital, but if I was his owner, I'd be popping him straight up with a no reserve and sending him off to the bush somewhere. Reece Goodwin, get in the bin. Good addition, boys, but plenty of racing to discuss this week. And what we might do, just while we get our groove, we'll tick off a couple of races in Victoria at Caulfield before we go full steam into that terrific group card at Royal Randwick. And Mitch, I might throw to you just in terms of the track conditions at Caulfield, the rail's in the true position. How can we expect it to race, do you think, on Saturday?
Yeah, so having a look at it now, they're saying it's a soft 6. You'd think that would be the case given the rain earlier in the week, but having a look at the forecast, I think it can improve. I think it'll probably get to that perfect sort of soft 5 range. Rail in the true, like it's sort of favoured runners on speed there at Caulfield this season. I think that's been fair to say. So if it is a little bit wet, I probably want to come away from the inside lanes. I probably want to be operating 3+, but I think if you get a run, it's as even as it's going to be. I don't think it'll be really leader bias like we've seen when that rail gets pushed right out. But I think runners will look to use probably the middle of the track.
Well, let's kick off in race number 7, the listed Elvis Thurgood Galilee Series final. We'll get that out, 2,400 metres here. We're all going to have a little bit, well, you and I, Mitch, we're going to have a little bit of a play. I'm going to hamburger with a lot, a back and a lay here. Mitch, who do you like in race number 7?
I sort of went the way of Apulia here. He's drifted in the market early, but I think third up in trip to the 2,400 really suits him. So second in the Derby last year behind Riff Rocket on a similar distance. I sort of think he's sort of primed here. I know he's got the wider barrier, but I don't think that'll bother him. I think he'll go back a little bit. I don't mind the drift on him because I think he's a backable price if he's around that 350 plus. So I just think a few things line up in his favour here with the extra fitness and the extra trip. I think he's the one that's probably going to gobble it right up, footy.
Yep. Apulia certainly up in trip, is ball in his court out of that Alistair Clark that was fastly run, will be primed. Look, I'm going to back lay here. I'm siding with the value here, number 14, Into You at around $11 corporates at the moment. Just think she does represent some value at those double figure odds. That fastly run Alistair Clark, she was the first to make the move at the 800, was pushed very wide on the course and just peaked on her run late. She looks to have a real race in her and perhaps a little bit more of an economical run coming with one burst here. I think she can certainly feature. And then my lay out of this race is going to be the last start winner, number 2, Antrim Coast, out of that Alistair Clark. Didn't get pushed as wide as a lot of those runners and has a horrific SP profile if you go through, something like $151 against Orchestral 2 back, $51 last start. I think just mighty's tight in the market, coming up $3.30 favourite here. So certainly have runners like Apulia, Sunsets and Into You, particularly at the price ahead of Antrim Coast. So I think it's a little bit deeper than that, and prepared to take Antrim Coast on in the 7th. Dino, do you have an opinion at all on this race?
No opinion for me. I do like your lay with the 2, though. I think staying races, we can often get carried away when one horse does have a win. They often come up really short the next sort of start, and we know the setup with staying sort of ranks. They can all take turns in the next start. So shoulders, arms, betting-wise, but I do like the lay, the 2 there for you, footy.
Yep, let's head to race 8 now, boys. The Group 3 Victoria Handicap. Cardinal Gem won this race last year, Ayrton in 2022, and Mr. Quickie back in 2021. Interesting betting race here because we've got Globe, who looks a real talent. Only the one run in the fee and last prep pulled up with that cardiac arrhythmia, was tipped out and hasn't really raced sound since May last year. So interesting to come up very short in the market. You've got the likes of Attrition, who went amiss in the Futurity, Buffalo River, who's been racing in some Group 1 company and gets to that pet track and trip, and Here to Shock as well can't be dismissed, and throwing in some Easter Cup form line as well. How did you sort of attack this one, Mitch? It looks like you're keen to play.
Yeah, so I sort of went, I guess you'd say a 3-bet play, and I was sort of chasing value. So I guess to start, I'm going to be laying Globe at his price. I just think he's a little bit under the odds first up. I know you can bounce when you have that cardiac arrhythmia first up, but I just sort of thought you're getting asked to take a short price for a couple of unknowns in the market. So I think there's talented horses in here. We can play around at the value. I think to get involved in Globe, I'd want something near 550. And while he's sitting there around the favourite, I think I'm probably just willing to play around him. So the two that I thought were valued at back, the one, Attrition, I think he can improve second up here. I don't think he had everything go his way first up, and he does have a sound second up record, and I think he's a little bit of the forgotten horse. He is a Group 1 winner, so I think that's going to suit him. And then Sione's my other one at value. She showed good talent last year, last prep, I should say. She beat a horse in Adelaide, See You in Heaven, who there's a big rap on. And then she came out in the hot Moonee Valley race behind Pride of Jenny and Amelia's Jewel. So second up here, she's 3 from 4, second up, 5 from 5 at this 1,400-metre trip. I think they're the two in value. They're probably the ones I'm going to have a little spec on.
Yeah, Sione, she was certainly unlucky last start to waltz on by as well. Probably just missed that run from the back when they were sort of fanning wide that day at Caulfield. Dino, Globe, interesting runner. What did you sort of want to continue on with that discussion around the price of Globe?
Yeah, I just want to chat a little bit about what moves prices when we get to race day. And obviously, you look at the trial, and more often than not, we see early in the week with these markets, if you do trial well, you often open shorter. But then when we see race day post 9 o'clock and we see the big guys chime in, they're not looking at trials. They're referencing off the data, off their ratings, et cetera, et cetera. And on my figures, I think he's got to sort of find 2 to 3 lengths off what he's done in his last preparation to win this race. Progression says he can do it, but his price of it, he's already done it. So I think this is a good opportunity. If he gets to race day and stays around that price, I'd be happy to lane. But I think if you do like Globe and want to back him, I'd be waiting for Saturday because I think he's going to be a big drifter in this market and you're going to get juicy odds later, footy.
Love your work. Let's move on, boys. Race number 9, which is the Group 3 Easter Cup, run under handicap conditions. White Marlin won the race last year, Milford in 2022, Hangman back in 2021. How are you assessing this one, Dino? It's a little 2-bet play for you in the Easter Cup, mate.
Yeah, I love a little Tommy Haylock 2-bet play. I really like this race. I think it's one of the better betting races across the whole entire Caulfield card. Love the first up winner, First Immortal. We'll be backing it. I thought it sort of wasn't expected somewhat to win first up. Has a career peak, second up over a 2,000-metre trip, gate 4. Everything just reads as if it will win. And the second of the 2-bet play is number 9, Carini, who Mitchie loves, but he's dropping off. So that just adds lengths to this horse. But unlucky last start, really good profile. I think gate 11's the only knock, but I'm more than happy to have a little 2-bet play on the 3, First Immortal, and the 9, Carini.
And the blinkers go on Carini for the first time. She's been very frustrating for punters, though. Mitchie, it sounds like you've been frustrated in the past as well. Who do you like?
Yeah, so Dino's just jumping straight back in to grab him here after I'm hopping off. So fair play, Dino. I just didn't see enough when he finished third late for me to really want to follow him in here when I've got a horse like First Immortal in the race. So I'm keen to be backing First Immortal. He's probably my best bet there at Caulfield. I wasn't with him first up. I thought he'd improve over more trip, and he's come out and blown him away first up over a 1,600-metre trip. He's up to the 2,000 here, 4 from 5 at the trip, 2 from 2 at Caulfield. I just think he was going to improve the deeper he got into the prep and the more trip he goes over. And so I think this sets up really well for him. I think he's going to come back in really good order and have a really good prep.
Yeah, I'm with you, boys. Let's make it an absolute 3-buy here because First Immortal on top for me. I think Mitch, one of the better bets on the card as well. That first up run was outstanding and think's going to be able to take up a position depending on what Deny Knowledge does, who likes to set a pretty solid clip up top, can just smoke the pipe in behind Deny Knowledge or get up outside. And I think will be mighty hard to beat out to 2,000. So agree in full there with you, lads. Before we head to Royal Randwick, we've got what we do here on layback with Betfair. We like to go back to school. I'm sure Dino and Mitch, you're both A-grade students back in the high school days. That's why you've become full-time students of the form, like myself. And what we're focusing on today, and what it's great when we get 2 new analysts on the show, is to understand how you like to use Betfair to best, to best advance your punting. And look, everyone's got different ways that they bet, different staking methodologies and all those sorts of things. I'd be interested to hear how you guys use Betfair to be profitable punters. Dino, might start with you.
Yep, as probably many punters do know, I'm a bit of a trial perv. I love watching my trials and betting off the trials. When it comes to race day and when it comes to Betfair, I think the biggest thing I can understand then is how this market's going to move and how it's going to shape. I think Globe's probably the perfect example. Really, really stylish trial. Everyone sort of watches the trial, gravitates it. It goes up sort of shorter odds with the corporates purely off the back of a trial. But then you dive deeper. Does the rating stack up to that price? Probably not. So in my mind, I think two things. I think if I can get a short enough price on race day, I'm happy to lay him. And then on the flip side of that, if he gets out to say that $5, $6 plus, I can understand that, yep, that's his right price. He's moved and I can bet. So I think that the point that I want to make is that you can understand who moves the markets, when the markets move, and you can chime that into the way you do form. And a majority of my form is done off the trials. So that's a big way that I use it footy. And it sort of all comes down to when the market change and why the market's moving in that direction.
Love it, Dean. What about yourself, Mitch? Is it something that, are you a little bit different to Dino in the way that you approach the exchange?
Yeah, I've sort of been having a bit of success in the last couple of months with my laying of some short price favourites. So I think I've stated a lot through other channels that I'm on. I put a lot into my race maps and how the race is going to shape. And I like to base a lot of lays around depending on that. So what I'm finding is advantages in the market laying horses that are below that $2 mark that I've mapped that are going to get in an awkward position. I think an example I had was maybe 3 weeks ago. I laid a horse at Strathalbyn that was quite short. It was below $2. Barrier 1, get back type on a tight turning track. So he was clearly the best horse in the race, but it was always going to be awkward for him. And so say that they're $1.60 and we're talking liabilities, I'm only risking 60 to make that 100. So if I'm finding a short fave that's going to be out the back, I don't really have to risk too much to hope he's going to have a bad run. It doesn't always work out. Sometimes they'll blow out and explode. But at the minute, I'm having a lot of success with finding runners at short odds that are going to get into awkward positions.
Terrific insight, boys. Absolutely love it. Just goes to show there's so many different avenues and the way that you approach the great game. And I'm really keen as well when we get into Randwick to talk about a little bit of this trial perv stuff with you, Dino, and how you approach these wet trackers or potential wet tracks. Their horses are yet to see them. So we might get stuck into Sydney this week. And what a card, what a day of racing. And I know the weather forecast, Dean, isn't pretty, but there is something beautiful about the championships and seeing the wet track and the runners fan wide. Maybe I'm just a bit of a sicko, but that's how I feel about the championships. That's what's ingrained in my mind is heavy tracks at Royal Randwick. As long as we get through proceedings safely, and the weather forecast doesn't look overly kind at the moment, Dean.
No, it doesn't. We have to get either yours or Tommy Haylock's helicopters out there maybe to run around the track and blow the water off the surface, but pray that we do race because this is the great advertisement for the game. If you look at this card, it's one of the best. So I think you make a good point. Wet tracks are terrific in the sense that you can more often than not pen half the field on these wet tracks. 2-year-old races, 3-year-old races, unexposed are tricky, especially when we haven't had the lead up of sort of wet tracks over the last couple of weeks. It's a strange autumn where it's been dry, and now it's Armageddon. So that will play into it, but Randwick rail true, wet track. I love betting there because there's a clear profile, off rails and run, get sort of further out to the middle, and those big fields allow you to get to the outside fence, which is more often than not the fresh pad of grass. So, no, I love it, footy. The Doncaster, one of the better races you'll see, so can't wait to rip into it in a sec.
There are so many angles in that particular race, and we might have to dedicate a little bit of time for the show, I think, dissecting it. But before we get there, we're going to start off in race number 4, which is the Group 3 Adrian Knox Stakes for the 3-year-old fillies. It's run under handicap conditions over 2,000 metres. And Autumn Angels one that headlines the betting here, about $2.70 on corporates at the moment. But Mitchy Lewis, you're going to take a set against the Moody and Coleman filly.
Yeah, I've got there in the end. So when I was looking earlier in the week, I sort of had her as one of my better bets. I think she's the class horse in the race. But as we get closer to Saturday, I think the setup I'm a little bit concerned about. So she's going to have to carry 61 kilos on a potentially heavy 10, and she's a get-back run-on type. I just sort of think that's leaving a lot to the sort of interpretation that to me, she's clearly the best horse, but gee, she's going to have to do a power of work with that heavy weight on a genuinely heavy track. So she's been backed into favouritism. Well, I think she might have opened favouritism, but they've continued to come for her. I just sort of think if she's anything below $3, I'm just happy to take her on. I think it's going to be a tough go for her. She'll have some heavy legs at the end of this race, even over the 2,000.
She's giving the rest of the field 5.5 kilos, which is a pretty
lactic acid.
Yeah, it's all right. Here we go. We're going to have a physiology session with Dean Watling here on Layback. I like this. Dino, you're not getting involved in this race. Do you have? Did you have a view or an on topper here for the listeners at all?
The only insight I had was, I think if you like Autumn Angel, I think Mitchie makes a great point. I think maybe backed early in the week because of her profile. Get to race day, I think we'll start to figure out that maybe it's not the greatest profile, so she should drift. So if you like her, wait and back her late on the fair, because I think you'll get $3 plus easy.
Love it. Hey, I'm going to have a spec here on number 12, Good Banter, for the O'Shea team. Just closed off well in that Kembla Classic from the back, crossed the line with the likes of Tuta La Vida, who then went on to split Orchestral and Zardozi in the Vinery. So clocked the fastest last 200 metres of that race and looks the one that will appreciate the rise to 2,000 and has previously won well on a heavy 9. So likely to get some cover from the wide draw, find some good going under the urgings of Jamie Carr. I think Good Banter's a good bet, around $7 at the moment on the corporates. Race number 6. Boys, it's the first of the Group 1s we're going to feature. It's the Inglis Sires for 2-year-olds. Set weights 1,400 metres. Militarised was the winner of this race last year. Fireburn in 2022 and Animo in 2021. The speed looks pretty good here, fellas. You've got the likes of a Node on the quick backup. Will lead from 1 with Timmy Clark. Stormboy drawing out. Now, this could be the key difference from the Golden Slipper. I'm keen to hear your thoughts on this. And then you've got the likes of Lady of Camelot and Traffic Warden, who will get runs in behind that speed. Is that how you're seeing the race unfold, Dino?
Yeah, definitely. I think you made there, or the best point was Stormboy drawn out. I think that was the undoing of him potentially in the Golden Slipper. We know his barrier antics, smaller field, less pressure here compared to a Slipper, I guess. But there still is good speed whenever you've got Waterhouse and Bot runners in it. I think you summed it up well. I think Lady Camelot probably injects from wide. You've got Juvana, blinkers on, potentially more forward. But, good speed, good race, and it's a good horses race.
Yep. Are you going to be having a bet in this race, Mitchie Lewis, or are you going to be shouldering arms Stephen Smith style?
Yeah, I'm probably happy to shoulder arms here, and it's probably track related, like, heavy 10s expected with 2-year-olds. I sometimes sort of feel it's a bit of anything can happen in this type. So I'm probably happy to let you boys have a play in this one and just watch them go around.
Dean, I'm fascinated to hear why you've got Lady of Camelot on top after making some of those points around Stormboy drawing 8, J-Mac back on and being able to muster.
It's all down to price for me. I think you can look at his run in the Golden Slipper and draw 2 conclusions. First conclusion is he was lackluster. He was poor back the inside, and he's screaming out to 1,400 metres. Or you can make the assumption that maybe he just hasn't come back to the Magic Million setup. So I think he's screaming out to 1,400 metres. I think the wide gate helps, but he is priced off the back that he's going to do that already. So I think at his current quote, I think he's a great winning chance, but he's too short in the market for me. That's why I went the way of Lady Camelot. I thought her sectional strength late in a Golden Slipper screened to me she'll get 1,400 metres. She's got 2 career peaks now that surpass what Stormboy did in the Magic Millions 2-year-old Classic. And I love Gate 6. I think the pattern of the day there at Randwick, you want to be up on speed, you want to be off rails, and you want to be sort of jetting or angling to the middle of the track. I think Gate 6 just allows her to do that. So depending on what Stormboy does price-wise, could back him late, but I think the bet in the race has to be Lady Camelot right now, footy.
Yep. I'm going to be opposing you with Stormboy here. I know he holds the favouritism, but just drawing 8, J-Mac going back on, out to 1,400 metres, he's going to be allowed to just muster and get through his gears a little bit easier as opposed to a 1,200 metre Golden Slipper drawn inside. So J-Mac's the key as well. I think he's going to be able to get up there on speed and be able to go through his gears. And he's an absolute man compared to some of these 2-year-olds. And I think he's going to eat up a heavy going 1400 metre race. So I'm keen to stick with Storm Boy. I've been in number one ticket holder of his fan club since the Magic Millions. I jumped on, and I'm not prepared to jump off yet and have to cop it. But you got a lay bet as well for us, Dino. You've got a hamburger with a lot in this race.
I do. I think the two Coleman, I think he is, I know he's sort of around that $7.50 price, but I think that's unders. I think I've got him marked around $12, $13 plus. I want to reference the sectional data out of the Golden Slipper. I think you can compare Lady Camelot to him. Lady Camelot, 4 to the 2 was 11.12, and then 2 to the finish was 11.44. So only around 30 milliseconds between them. That suggests that she was strong late. And then you look at Coleman, he was about 10.80, 4 to the 2, and then sort of 11.60, 2 to the finish. So visually, it looked like he faded, and then you reference the data and it backs it up. So up to 1,400 metres, testing track, I just think it will find him out. Maybe if it was a dry track, you could make a case. For those points just mentioned, I think Coleman is the lay in the race in the Inglis Sires.
Love your work. Well, he puts your $1.60 lay strategy straight in the bin there, Mitch Lewis, with just laying a $7.50 pot.
Got to go to the place there, Dino.
I could, yeah, that's not a bad idea.
There's some serious bank there at Dean Watling Hull. He can pop it up. There's no issues at all. Boys, it's extraordinary that this race almost flies under the radar on this day, and I speak of which is extraordinary. Race 7, Group 1 TJ Smith Stakes. It's such a terrific day of racing. It took me about 4 hours to do the Doncaster, so I didn't get as much time to spend on this particular race, but it's the TJ Smith Group 1 weight for age 1,200 metres, and what a contest this is. We had Nature Strip obviously win 3 on the bounce before I Wish I Win won the last year's edition, and got the likes of Imperatriz, who heads to New South Wales, and if she can win, does it just put to bed the New South Wales knockers? I speak of you, Dean Watling, and she becomes this 10-time Group 1 winner, 6 of them in Australia. She's going to be very hard to put holes in if she goes up and gets it done in the wet Imperatriz. Looking at the speed map here, and I might get you to talk about this a little bit more in detail, Dean. It was a hardish race to map because you got the likes of Coal Crusher, who I think will be the likely leader. Magic Time from 1 will hunt rails. Johnny Rocker from 3, Imperatriz from 6 will be prominent. It didn't look like a stack of speed in a race that's going to be that's got a lot of fast horses in it ultimately.
Yeah, you make a good point. I think sometimes what injects speed into races is when you get those speed horses that draw out. So we sort of got Magic Time, who draws gate 1, then we reference Coal Crush. He does draw out gate 10, but they should just slide across, set a cozy enough speed, and then you got Chain of Lightning, Cylinder potentially. So I don't think it's going to be a breakneck speed, but I think it's going to be solid enough. I think the biggest thing for the race is those horses in the midfield. I think they probably want it to be stretched out so they can find a spot. If it's a muddling tempo, you look at the likes of Imperatriz, Sunshine in Paris, Bella Nipotina, Malzoo. What do? Private Eye, more likely not going to be here from the wide gate wet track. Does Malzoo go forward now on his favoured track? So I thought the same. I think the speed maps may be the key to everything in this race.
Love it. Mitchie, how are you going to attack the TJ this year?
Yeah, I guess I've got a lot of question marks around a few horses, which has just sort of lent me towards looking for a bit of value. And these aren't knocks on them, like they're dead set stars, but I Wish I Win off the long break. I know he's capable. I probably just want to see him do it. We know that they were worried sending Imperatriz here last prep to New South Wales. And if it was last prep and she came up, I thought she's going better last prep than she is here. So it's probably just a question mark for me. And Bella Nipotina is another one. I all think they're dead set stars that could jump out of the ground, but I'm getting good value on the 13 Magic Time just to find out. It's probably a 1x3 type play. She was well supported first up. I think she's better second up on her previous run second up. She's won on a heavy as well. I'll probably have the little Knox barrier 1. I don't know if I want to be on the inside, but if I can peel away from there, I think she's a great value at the place there. I think it sets up nicely for her potentially, and we'll do the 1x3.
I love your work, Dean. You've painted the picture like Picasso you've Picassoed the TJ Smith. Now, where are you putting your cashola?
Cashola, another Tommy 2-bet play. I think it's a good meeting. We can attack this. Happy to be against Imperatriz just at the price. I'm fascinated to see what the market does. But 2-bet play here, I think I Wish I Win the 1. His fresh record's phenomenal. I know the wet track that setup off a long layoff isn't ideal, but you go back and look for his sort of career. He probably should have won an Everest last year fresh. And Memsey was great. And then his Lightning Stakes runs last year, over 1,000 metres, was phenomenal. Keen to back him, and I can't go without having something on the 11 Sunshine in Paris. She was so good in the Challenge Stakes, back towards the inferior inside going, 1,200 metres, and she's somewhat disrespected in the market. You go back to the spring, she won a Sirocco Stakes, towed up Espiona and co. Does have to handle the wet, but two-bet play for me. The one I wish I win, and the 11 Sunshine in Paris footy.
Yeah, it'd be huge for that Nisham stable for someone for a horse like Sunshine in Paris to step up and stamp themselves as well. Obviously, with the stable retiring Zaki last week, so looking for that flagship horse now, the big Nisham operation. Boys, I'm going to Tommy here as well. I've got to back Imperatrice. I'm just keen to see her silence the doubters. She doesn't mind getting a toe into the ground. She's a Group 1 winner, albeit New Zealand over 1,400. So, and has run a huge figure in doing that. So a 1,200 metres heavy surface, that's no query for me at all with her. And the other is Bella Nipotina, number 9. It's been a while since she's been on genuine rain-affected ground in that Manikato. However, the way she got through it that day, the enormous peak she ran, that just says to me you have to have something on her if we're in the heavy range. Now, she has looked a touch off them this prep. Last start, she was perhaps ridden a touch negatively. Craig Williams back on, loves Randwick, $13. Yes, please. So I'm going to play Imperatrice and Bella Nipotina in the TJ Smith, which now brings us to race number 8, the Group 1 Doncaster Mile Handicap, 1,600 metres. Mr. Brightside went back-to-back the last 2 years prior to that. Cascadian won in 21, which has then produced subsequent some really good weight for age form from those previous winners. Speed everywhere here. Barriers so important, but how do you go about it? You guys have attacked this race and the angles that you've come from, because weights, barriers, so incredibly important in the Doncaster Mile, Dean.
Yep, I think you got to figure out how you want to attack the race. The way I attacked it was started with the barrier stats and understanding this 1,600 metre start at Randwick. It's so kind. You got the entire back straight around 400 metres until the turn. So look through history. The last 20 winners of this race, 13 of those have drawn barriers 8 to 18. So it's a bit of the myth that you need to draw inside, albeit Mr. Brightside drew gate 2, and I think he's 2 wins in this race. Randwick, wet track, 1,600 metre start, big field, pressure on, allows horses to get in the middle part of the track, and then allows horses to springboard off that and get to the better lane. So that's where I started with it. And then I think weights are so crucial for this. The horses with that lighter weight, especially on a testing track, have such a good profile for this. And it's a little bit interesting. You look at the field, and it's one of the best Doncasters, but at the same time, it's one of the wet track Doncasters. You look through the form here, you could dead set make a case for 10 or 12 of these as being some of the best wet trackers, bar Jungle Edge, who isn't here. But,
might be the only race they run Saturday. They'll just be like, "Oh, these ones can all handle it."
That's a good point. That is a very good point.
I don't mind that.
But no, it's he might go now retirement. Douglas, just pop his name in there, turn up and tell up a Doncaster footy.
I feel like another wheel who you guys are both going to touch on there's some significant hype around this horse. I've been in on it. I love it. This is something that I feel racing needs at the moment, is for another wheel to stand up and perhaps stamp himself in a race like the Doncaster. Does it concern you? I know you reference history a little bit, that no one's ever gone and won the Prelude and then the Doncaster, Dino. If you're throwing these history stats out when it comes to barriers, what do you take into account with the week back up for a horse like Another Wheel?
Yeah, well, his barrier and his lead up don't suit the narrative of history, so I'm just going to null and void it for my sake. That's how you sort of play those stats. No, I think I had a strong profile. The George Riders tends to be the key lead up for the Doncaster, but we've seen over the last couple of years, the All-Star Mile and a couple of other, I think the Rambit produced a Natoya. So it's sort of changed, which has definitely helped my thinking. I think the biggest thing with Another Wheel, Gate 21, is the speed that he has around him. You've got Southport Tycoon, you've got Zugotcha, I think you've even got, scroll down the page, Fearsome out wide. So I think he's going to be able to blend into this race and get into that sort of 3-wide line with cover. And I think if he lands there, he is the horse that I want to be backing in this race. I think he's just completely beaten the handicapper. Like, he scraped in last week in the Doncaster Prelude. Everything just sense of timing. And you listen to the stable and they just scream that he's a better horse on top of the ground. So price is everything. I think we'll get a better price on race day, but I'm really keen to back Another Wheel.
It's a significant jockey booking as well when you've got the likes of Southport Tycoon, Jamie Carr getting a choice between Another Will and Southport Tycoon, and gets on this runner that didn't even have a start in the race until last week.
Yep.
So it's a pretty strong push from a jockey. And geez, the Group 1 Australian Guineas form is one of the hottest form references in Australia. So big call. Mitchie, how are you going about this?
Yeah, Dino touched on a lot of the points that I had, and that's why we've probably lined up together on Another Will. I guess one thing with the sort of will he handle the backup, I think he's in the right stable that gives you the confidence that he will. They'll know, given all their data and stuff that they do, the Mar team, that he's going to be able to handle it. And I know that they said earlier in his career that he needed give in the ground to be a better horse, and we've seen him this prep blow him away on good tracks. So I think he's going to be able to improve. And like Dino said, the sense of timing has worked out perfectly that he's going to get into this race with 50 kilos after he left them for dead in the prelude. So I think it sets up nicely, but it's not always exciting tipping the favourite. If somebody out there who's a dead set roughy punter, I don't think Pericles, currently around the $40 to $50 mark, I don't think Pericles should be that high. I can get that a lot shorter. Just on a wet track, I think it sets up nicely. But Another Wheel I'm keen to be with, and I might just have a little speckle on Pericles there too. Yeah,
it's a challenging race if you mount a case for a runner in this to poke too many holes in anyone's opinion. And I think this race is what makes racing so great, is that you can have a pretty strong opinion on 10 runners in this field and go, yeah, okay, you make a good point. And that being said, and as I mentioned at the top, I'm loving what Another Will's doing, but just at the moment, I think you'll get a better price on the day with him as well. He's what, 380 on Corpse at the moment. I'm gonna go the way of Celestial Legend here, who I think is something pretty special. When Les Bridge comes out and says Celestial Legend's the best horse I've had, and this is after the Hobartville when he's won two Hobartvilles 40 years apart with Sir Dapper and then Celestial Legend. So he's got a fair bit of skin in the game. Like, none of us are even 40, and he's done that race 40 years apart, which is just extraordinary. That win in the Randwick Guineas was huge, wide throughout, no right to win, still too good. Beat Militarizer, who had the run of the race. Militarizer's then run V8 to a length in the George Ryder, and V8 has some of the hottest form going around through the Oz Guineas, and 1.3 lengths off Pride of Jenny and Mr. Brightside in the Ore. So you can tie terrific form through these runners, and Celestial Legend at around $8 now, drawn very well in 6. I'll have something on him at the $8 quote in the Doncaster Mile, but respect all other points being made in such a fantastic Group 1 handicap.
It's funny, isn't it? Like, you talk about Celestial Legend, and it's sort of out of sight, out of mind set up with him as well. Like, Another Will was in the media, quick backup, terrific last week. Celestial Legend hadn't been seen for a bit, and he was a red hot favourite prior to Another Will. So, and his tick over trial was great. So, and the 3-year-olds, I was potting him, but they've been turning up. Cylinder, V8, and a couple of others have been turning up. So, I think he's a really good price in this race.
49 kilos for a grey colt. When you're grey in the wet, it's like Ian Thorpe Sydney 2000 swimsuit. You get a little bit more out of it. You get a little bit more out of you. So,
outboard on the back.
Yeah, exactly. Boys, race number 9 is the Group 1 ATC Australian Derby 3-year-old set weights, 2,400 metres. Major Bill won the race last year, Haitotsu in 2022, and Explosive Jack in 2021. Fascinating betting race here because you've got Zardozi on the quick backup after running an orchestral to just over a length. You've got the Rosehill Guineas winner in Roof Rocket, who pushes out to 2,400 metres. Keen to hear if you think he's a genuine stayer. Then you've got Dino's favourite horse, Tom Kitten, who's finally getting the trip that he wants. Who knows? Group 2 Tulloch winner, Wymark, looks the one on the up. How are you assessing this one, Dean?
Great race. History has a really good profile for this. The quick backup and the Tulloch Stakes is normally the profile for this. Fascinating to see what the market does here. I love the setup for Zardozi. I think you referenced the run of Orchestral last week, and I think we're all full of merit that she sort of sustained that run. Tricky, muddling tempo. Tutor Levita took off. Zardozi was out the back as well. Had to do the exact same work as her, and probably gave away race fitness. Reference the spring. She did the Wakefield to the Oaks, the quick backup, loved it. She grows the leg in the wet. I think the only knock possibly you can find for her is gate 2, but you got Jay Carr on, slide off the inside, and takes me a little bit to get up and about a 2,400 metre bet, but this is one of the good bets you can find in the staying race. I'm scared of obviously Riff Rocket, but I just can't chime into his price. I think he might be a little bit too brilliant footy for the 2,400 metres. I think he might be just a 2,000 metre dry tracker.
I'm with you. Like, I'm a big Riff Rocket man. I've been quoted on air saying I'll dye my hair purple with the connections if they send him to the Cox Plate. So I'm a big Riff Rocket man. But and look, Chris Waller will back him in. We'll back him in, boys. But I am convinced he's got through that derby on class over 2,500 metres. And I know you know, when you're going into your 3-year-old career, you're going to furnish and be a different prospect. But I'm thinking 1,600 to 2,000 metres is his go. But the best part is being a heavy track Saturday. We're going to find out if he's a stayer or not, Riff Rocket. So really excited to see how he goes. Mitch, how are you looking at the Australian Derby?
Yeah, so I've probably sort of stuck with Riff Rocket. I've been with him through this prep. I think the heavy track's going to be the undoing if there is an undoing. I'm just not willing to take him on. I'm putting him on top just because I think he is the class horse again. We're going to find out. I probably would make him a best bet on a good track, but at this stage, I'll probably just tip him. I'm probably not going to back him as heavy as I would if we were on the goods. But I just think class might stand out here again.
Boys, I'm looking outside the fancies here, and I'm siding with number 3, Chow Wolf, at $10. So you're getting around double figures for this runner who ran a career peak figure last start in the Rosehill Guineas, was the second fastest closing splits behind Riff Rocket. Not as dynamic as Riff Rocket, but feel he's going to be a better suited prospect out to 2,400 metres. Being by Tavistock, bred to eat up these conditions, I reckon he's a good 1x3 play. So a little bit of value for me, fellas, in the ATC Derby there. Let's head to race 10 now, which is the Group 3 PJ Bell Stakes. It's for the 3-year-old fillies, 1,200 metres. Heresy won the race last year, Matchmaker in 2022, and Rubasaki in 2021. It's a great race to finish the card. There's some good speed engaged here, and you boys have tortured minds have come together here and landed on Learning to Fly, who looks pretty well primed here to perhaps get back into the winner's stall.
Bit of a D-day setup for me. I like this filly a lot. Had a lot of time for a factor in probably all of her starts. I think she just gets a perfect setup here. Gate 5. The Justifiers are bred to handle the wet. You look at their stats, the sire stats, and they suggest, yep, heavy will be fine, albeit all horses are obviously different. But I think the point that Mitchie made and we spoke about is the 14 back to the 1,200 metres. I think that is crucial for her chances here. And that race fitness, I know she's had a gap between runs, but she should get every possible chance to win this race. And she sort of has a sense of Class V, maybe up-and-comers in this race. So I really like her. I think she's a bet in the race. And I know you'll touch on the 12 commemorative footy, but I'm just scared about her big action in a sloppy track. So not keen to be Learning to Fly like you, Mitchie.
Yeah, you've touched on all of the points that I had, Dino. So Learning to Fly, I sort of thought coming down in class, like the 4th in a Group 1, back down to a Group 3. And like you said, I thought the 1,400 metres might be the undoing. I thought she exploded late first up over the 1,200 metres. So I think third up here, back to 1,200, are really good setups for her. Chad Schofield's got options from barrier 5. He can find a good position on a track that we would imagine if they race Saturday, it's going to be pretty cut up by this stage of the day. So I like the setup for her here. I think she can win us in the last.
Yeah, I'm siding, as you mentioned, boys, with commemorative here. I've always had a lot of time for this big filly. I was really keen on her through the Melbourne Spring. I think it was the Desirable at Flemington, and she's just so big, and she needs to get running room. And she was inside runners that day, and he just doesn't travel. So drawing 8 here, she's got some good rain-affected form. She came back super through that 72 race at Wyong, where she was given room to run, put them away comfortably. Didn't rate through the roof the race, but to the eye, it looked really good. And she'll improve again second up, and she will have to win this. But yeah, she's better getting a toe in the ground. I think she'll get plenty of running room, and she can certainly feature around that $5.56. So commemorative, I'll be on the big filly to hopefully round out a real big day with the pockets bulging, boys, on Saturday after day 1 of the championships. And I'm sure you blokes will be on course, absolutely hissing them as well. Well, not Mitchie, but I know you'll be on course, Dino, loving it up there in Sydney with your wetsuit.
Yeah, I have the wetsuit on, nice and thick. I'll be there with the flippers on the lawn. Hopefully we race. one of the best meetings you'll find. But wish you all there. Wish Mitchy was there. It'll be a good day out there, and hopefully a couple of winners along the way. And like you said, hopefully a suitcase leaving the races after.
Yeah, well, if they don't race, it's been terrific discussion regardless with you guys today. It's love using time efficiently. It's time now to get into our segment called The Lay Streak. And I'm not sure if you're keeping an eye on the socials, but I am taking the piss out of this competition at the moment. It is. I'm up in lights. There's, I think, everything that Reece lays wins. And Carl got real cute last week. He laid Pride of Jenny to place, which was just a laughable bet in my opinion. So I'm sort of at the cocky end now of the lay streak where I'm just firing shots at all the Betfair colleagues. So boys, as mentioned in the Caulfield preview, my lay streak this weekend comes up in race number 7, Antrim Coast. He's a last start winner in the Alistair Clark, but I'm not liking the SP profile, and I think the race is a little bit deeper than his price point suggests. So Antrim Coast is my lay streak bet this week. Dean, who you got?
Race 5 at number 1, Bandy's Boy in the Country Championships final. I just think gate 1, it might be a heavy 10 there on Saturday, but there'll be a heavy 15 on the inside where that horse will be. Needs Galloping Maroon, little abscess in the foot this week. I think everything just screams to me that that's too short. So race 5, number 1, Bandy's Boy Randwick is my lay streak, Mitchy.
I was going to say, yeah, just laying one that might not even run, Dino, just to make sure you got all ends covered there. So good strategy from you.
Collect. Hey, it'll go down as a collect.
Yeah. So as we touched on earlier, race 4 at Randwick, number 1, Autumn Angel. I think massive weight to carry on what looks like it's going to be a very heavy track. I just think if she ends up back in the field trying to make up ground late, she's going to be very tired. So I'm willing to take her on given the conditions.
Boys, we'll go with, I'll just give our best bet as well. So our best play for the weekend. Dean, we'll start with you. Who's your best across the course of Saturday?
I've tossed up between Zardozi, but I'll go with race 1, number 1, Espionage in the Kindergarten Stakes. A good horse's race. I thought he was a chance in the slipper, didn't make the field. I think he's perfectly placed, land in the 1-1 and say Wooshka. So my best bet there at Randwick, race 1, number 1, Espionage.
Mitch?
Yeah, as we touched on earlier, we'll go to Caulfield, race 9, number 3, First Immortal. I think he's set for a massive prepper. I'd almost say a surprise win first up. I think he's well suited here to the 2,000 metres now.
Yeah, I'm with you. Race 9, First Immortal as well. Thought it was a fantastic first up win over 1,600 metres in the inferior part of the track as well, which we probably didn't mention in the preview. So it had a lot of merit, that run up to 2,000 metres. Yes, please. Boys, been a lot of fun today on Layback with Betfair, having the All-Star cast in. Hopefully, we'll send Reece our well wishes, but I wouldn't mind doing this again sometime. It's been pretty good. I think this has been the smoothest operation that Layback's ever seen, boys, and that's a testament to both of you. All the best across the course of the weekend. Thanks for joining us on the show, and listeners, enjoy. Hopefully, the likes of Dean Watling and Mitch Lewis can fill your pockets, and we'll be back next week on Layback with Betfair.
What are you really gambling with? For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.